Kellyanne, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Brian.
I want to start on a positive note. Did you like the royal wedding?
Oh, absolutely. Who doesn't love a royal wedding? I thought it was fun. I admit I watched the clips afterwards. I didn't get up at 4 a.m.
That's okay. It was wonderful on a replay also.
It's fantastic. And by the way, two of my
could...
children are named George and Charlotte, but we had them first.
Oh, they had them first. There you go. Look, I would love to talk to you about the royal wedding all day, but I want to ask you about the tweets. What is the source for the president's claim that they have found no collusion with Russia, no obstruction? Has he been given a report by Mueller?
I won't tell you that, but I will tell you that over a year into this, that there is no evidence of collusion. The president has called this investigation a witch hunt many times, and yet he and his allies have been cooperative. They've turned over thousands of pages of documents. They've sat for dozens and dozens of interviews. And I think it's important to note that the public has a right to know, Brian, transparently and fully, what is going on here? What are we really looking at? If now we're looking at these stories that people in the Trump campaign early on, whom I've never even met, were meeting with people or were being surveilled by people, that's got zero to do with the winning part of the campaign. It just does. I have never, Carter Page was on your network telling your colleague Jake Tapper, this is important, that he's never met me. I don't recall ever meeting Carter Page or George Papadopoulos. The point I'm making is when you talk about the Trump campaign, you've got to break it up. And the winning part was focused very much on Macomb County, Michigan, and Mecklenburg County,
I think
North
it's helpful
Carolina,
to think
not
about
Moscow.
the Russian attack as a shadow campaign that's being investigated. But when the president says they found no evidence of collusion, it makes me wonder who's telling him that? Who's letting him inside the Mueller investigation?
Well, here's what the president knows,
has not
Brian.
been told that yet.
You know full well that if there was evidence of collusion, it would have leaked out by now. A lot has leaked out.
I do not know that. The Mueller team has not been leaking. I wish they would.
I didn't say they did, but there would be many people. I didn't say that, but as you know, there are many people who have access to different information. Obviously, there are several different investigations going on. The House has had one. The Senate has had one. Mr. Mueller has one, certainly.
But where is he getting this stuff? He tweeted that, quote, the witch hunt has given up on Russia and is looking at the rest of the world. He's citing this remarkable New York Times story.
Maybe he's watching your network where you sort of have shelved these screaming graphics about Russia collusion and you've replaced them with one person's lawyer who's been on your network for over 160 times in a short amount of time.
But as your colleague,
so
Sarah Sanders has said, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. There is an active investigation into Russia's attack on our country. It's a good thing that Mueller's also looking at other possible foreign influence. Who is telling the president that's given up on Russia?
Brian, respectfully, if you can walk and chew gum and whistle at the same time, then start covering this man's accomplishments. We have a new CIA director, most qualified person ever to be mentioned first. Well, no, but you don't want to tell America the truth of his accomplishments.
Every American knows about the accomplishments.
They don't know it if they watch CNN. They don't know that the unemployment rate's under 4%. They don't know that growth is close to 4%. They don't know that we're renegotiating trade deals with China, with Mexico, with everyone across the globe. They don't know. No, they don't know that the president is working on prison reform with CNN's
My email is
Van Jones.
bstelter@gmail. If you are watching this program and you don't know about those accomplishments, I want you to email me. Kellyanne, every viewer in America knows about those accomplishments. But they also know that the president is calling.
CNN.
They are watching CNN right now and they all know about the accomplishments.
Because I said so.
When you say the president calls this a witch hunt, he's describing a federal investigation into a foreign government's attack on our country. Do you recognize the harm that's being done when the president degrades the FBI that way?
He's not degrading the FBI. He's made very
Calling
clear
it a witch hunt degrades the FBI.
Hold on. No, it doesn't. Absolutely does not. And here's why. This president who went to Quantico with the new director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, a couple of months ago, addressed them. He and other people who speak on his behalf, like me, Brian, consistently say what I'm going to say now, which is the tens of thousands of men and women in the rank and file FBI who do their jobs respectably and diligently every day is not who the president's talking about. He's talking about specific actors whose names we know now: Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Orr and his wife, Strzok and Page texting each other about their animus towards President Trump, all the while screwing up the investigation into Hillary Clinton. The president says, where are her 33,000 emails if you're going to talk about that? Why was she allowed to give an interview not under oath?
It's his government. It's his government.
No. Excuse me. If you want to talk about the 2016 election, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I think everything should come out.
I asked about Russia's attack and who's telling the president that the Russia thing is
so,
over.
Brian, let me ask you a question.
No,
let me ask you a question, because you keep saying Russia's attack on democracy. What evidence do you or anybody at CNN have that any of that interference, any of that alleged interference played into the election results? You're trying to conflate it to make America think that somehow Donald Trump didn't win this election fairly and squarely, and you know he did. He won states that Hillary Clinton ignored, had nothing to do with Russia.
Resulted in President Trump's victory. 100 different things. One of those things was Russia's attack. And
no, you're wrong.
That's why there's an
so you're
ongoing
drawing
federal
a
investigation
nexus?
into possible
I'm sorry,
interference.
are you telling the world right now that there's a nexus between that and the result? Because most people are not willing to say that.
Sure, there's one
of
100 factors. There are 100 factors. You were responsible for some of those factors. Clinton's mistakes were some of the factors.
Talk about them on CNN every day.
Russia, there were a lot of factors. But let's,
no, Russia,
you know,
no. I'm not going to let you get away with saying that Russia had anything to do with this election result. What is your proof of that? What is it?
Okay,
show me.
The WikiLeaks, the use of WikiLeaks, the abuse of the WikiLeaks documents, the stolen emails, all of that. We've litigated this.
Brian, you're trying to break news here and it's not working. I'm sorry. Did you just say something that a lot of people on your side of the aisle are not willing to say?
I'm not on a side of an aisle. That's an offensive
tell America,
remark.
did you vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? How did your wife vote?
I did not vote
tell
for
America.
president. I left that spot blank on the ballot that day. But it's not appropriate for you to go around
probably didn't think she
asking
needed
people
your
who they
help.
voted for.
No, it's all appropriate to ask me things, but not other people. I think America should know.
We asked you to come on the program because you're a representative of the president. Yes, I think that's the point of the interview.
The president thinks that there's no nexus between any Russian interference and the outcome of the election, and a lot of folks think that now, which is why they're moving on to someone's lawyer being on your network 160 plus times in a short amount of time. You don't have those screaming graphics anymore of Russia collusion. Someone on a different network last night ran all these outtakes from people on your network and others where Adam Schiff was promising, Russia collusion. People were promising we're going to have evidence of this. You confused America and you wasted time talking about that instead of things that really matter to America, like a great, prosperous economy, national security, renegotiated trade deals. These things matter to people, Brian, and you know it. Look, if you think your job is to get the president and not get the story, you ought to just own it. Just say it. Because I know your viewers expect that now. Look at their comments all the time. Don't have Trump people on. They expect you to be reflexively, invectively anti-Trump.
I'm glad you're
problematic.
Here. The goal is not to get the president.
I'm happy to be here.
The goal is to get the truth. There's a lot of people lying and trying to obscure the truth.
But you're stating as truth now something that people aren't saying. Serious people are not
saying. No, I'm saying
that
there hasn't been a
Russian
report
interference
yet. I'm saying there hasn't been a
result.
report yet, so I don't know where the president's getting this claim that they found no collusion. Can I ask you
Hillary
about one
Clinton
other thing
disagrees
he tweeted?
with you, though, Brian. Hillary Clinton disagrees with you. She blames Comey. She blames white women listening to the men in their life. She blames sexism. I mean, Hillary Clinton blames everything. Maybe
I'm trying to find out where the actual presidents get information, not the woman that tried to be president. 5 days ago, the president tweeted that the probe was costing $10 million. Today, he said almost $20 million. Again, where is he getting this information from?
I don't know, but people know that it's a taxpayer-funded enterprise, and that's why they have a right to know. Look, I think that Judge T.S. Ellis a couple weeks back...
Right, but he said $10 million, then he said close to $20 million.
But put it perfectly, Judge T.S. Ellis told told the folks in the Manafort case that you can't use this Manafort investigation to go and try to embarrass the president. Like, you have to have something else. I think everybody should pull up and see what a federal judge in the Eastern District of Virginia had to say, because it reflects a lot of people's
heard all about it. That's the beauty of the media, right? Everybody heard about that. That was big news on that day.
Brian, I think it's really great that the president doesn't allow any of this to distract from being one of the most successful president in his first 16 months anywhere. I was with him at that Republican Senate lunch this week.
I respect the pivot. I don't know what he's working on this weekend, because all he's doing is tweeting about his resentments.
I know what he's working on. I just hung up with him 30 seconds before I came on your show. I know what he's working on.
And what was his message for you?
Many things. We were talking about a very specific issue that we're going to work on later today as a group. I mean, he's the president of the United States. You think that look, if it's so easy to get corporate tax rate from 35% to 21% and get a promise of 20,000 Apple jobs here, it would have been done in the last administration. If it's so easy to do prison reform to break the back of the opioid crisis, other presidents would have done it.
And it's still doing really well. I'm thankful. But I want to ask you about leaks, because that's something else the president tweeted about. He tweeted that people that are leaking in the White House are traitors and cowards. Now, putting aside the shocking language, using a term that has such legal consequence, traitors. Can you tell me if any staffers have been fired this week for leaking?
I can't reveal that, but I will tell you that the president thinks that a lot of stuff is made up and embellished. He knows that many of us get a text or an email or a phone call. Hey, I heard you think the moon is made of cheese. I have 2 sources. And someone will say, I actually don't have a problem with the moon and I don't think it's made of cheese. And then somebody else will call and say, we now have 3 sources who think you don't like the moon and it may be made of cheese. He understands people make up things. And he also knows that the leaks that you're talking about from 10 days ago were meant to hurt the people who were involved. So people like to settle personal scores by talking to the press, et cetera. But he also knows that those of us who have national top secret security clearances, those of us who are privy to lots of different information that never gets leaked, never gets even discussed, frankly, he understands the way the game is played. And I'll tell you one thing.
But leaking is a symptom. It's a symptom of a problem, of a deeper problem in the White House, right?
Hey, Brian, if there were leaks, you could change your chyrons. It could say breaking news, which would actually be true for once. It would be breaking and it would be news as opposed to stuff you've been talking about for 5 days. Hold on. And you would have the fruits of the leak. How come you don't have any fruits of leaks today? How come you're not showing me the confidential memo someone gave you over the transom? How come you're not talking about
Are you really arguing there's not that many leaks out of the White House?
Yeah, I would argue that. And I would tell you that they don't come from the press and comms shop, of which I'm technically not a member, but I tell you, there are hundreds and hundreds of people who work on that complex who folks don't know, but they have access to a lot of information. The president knows that. He's the president of the United States. He's done things that nobody would have imagined in the first 16 months of a presidency, and people do appreciate it.
Including tearing down our American media and other institutions in ways that are going to cause long-lasting harm and damage.
Poor media. Oh, poor you guys, institution.
We should recognize the flaws of your boss as well as his achievements. Can I ask you about this leak investigation, though? You said you can't say if any staffers have been fired, but it sounds like there is an active leak investigation. Is that right?
So I believe, yes, there is, and it's not just in the press and comms department, but it's also been overblown by the media, who apparently can't get fruits of leaks, just talk about the process of leaks.
Is the leaking exacerbated by not having a White House communications director? It's been a couple months now with that open job.
A lot of the leaks don't come from the press and comms department. The president knows that because he sees who's in different meetings, and then the information.
Is the president going to hire a new communications director?
The president is a great communications director, and he's got wonderful people supporting him. Look, I think the answer to your question is very simple, and I think you more than anybody will appreciate this, Brian. It's 2018. There are so many ways to communicate, to send and receive information with the public. The president does that through his considerable social media platform. Hundreds of millions of people, I suppose, see it there or see it on TV shows like this once he tweets. And so that, number one. Number two, you're dealing with the president himself, who's not a politician at all, probably never even spent many nights in Washington before he became president. This is a man who is very social media savvy. He's very media centric, and we're trying to build a structure. I'm just trying to help out the press and comms department temporarily. We're trying to build a structure that accommodates the realities of President Trump media savvy and 2018, where you just have so many more different platforms with which to communicate. So I think fitting us into a structure that helped, or I think benefited presidents right, left, and center in the past is just not a realistic view of 2018.
The president has not held a solo press conference at the White House for more than 400 days. Why is that?
The president talks to people all the time. I saw
but not a solo press conference.
Well, he has, let me just read this to you. According to Martha Kumar, the director of the White House Transition Project.
My former professor, yeah.
That's right. President Trump did 170 short question and answer sessions through April 29th, compared to 55 for President Obama.
Yeah,
those
lots
are
of
really
those short,
great.
Yeah.
But those are
not press conferences.
Well,
reporters have to shout questions, then the aides kick them out of the room. It's not a press conference.
No, well, press conferences are also people reading prepared statements and then perhaps knowing which questions are going to be asked, maybe some that aren't going to be asked. But this president makes himself available on the South Lawn.
He seems to be hiding from pressers and from interviews. He's not even going on Fox very often anymore. Why isn't he willing to give interviews?
Of all the words I would use to describe President Donald J. Trump, in hiding would not be among them. You may not like that he's cut out the middleman.
Why hasn't he gone on Fox, CNN? Why hasn't he gone on these channels?
You may not like that his social media platform. I know, but don't be jealous of that. Maybe he'll come on your show one day or your network.
It's very clear that
jealous
he's
of Fox
choosing
and
not
Friends
to
and
go
its
on
ratings.
CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS. If he wanted big ratings, he would go on one of the broadcast networks. He'd get 10 million viewers.
You know what
But
ratings
instead,
he cares about? He made that very clear when he was asked by someone from a different print platform recently, Brian. So do you think you'll get the Nobel Peace Prize? He made very clear, I want the best result for America. He's not thinking about that. I want the best. So same thing here. The ratings are seen through how people are benefiting from the tax cuts, the regulatory reductions,
we know the president cares about
nation.
ratings. But interviews and
he's got
pressers
great ratings. He's
are
the president.
accountability functions. And former presidents, they all knew that. They went along with it. They didn't necessarily want to have press conferences, but they did. Your boss chooses not to.
So
and I want to explore why.
So just so you know, I tell the president all the time, he should go out more because I think he's the best communicator we have, hands down. He won the election because he was out there bringing the message directly to the people every single day, unfiltered, not waiting for the middleman. And as president, he communicates daily through his social media, through answering these questions in the bilats, in the pool sprays. This is a president, Brian, and thank you for CNN covering all hour of it. 55 minutes plus with a bicameral, bipartisan group of members from the Hill talking about DACA and immigration a few months ago. Then the Democrats walked away, of course, as they normally do. But this is somebody who's very transparent, very accountable. I'd love for him to come on your network or your TV show, but he's happy to send me. I think we're into 17 minutes now. He's happy.
Well, what he does
Sarah
instead
Sanders
is
does
he
her
attacks
briefings.
CNN. He calls the New York Times crooked, and he smears these news outlets instead.
He sees a lot of things that
I
aren't
wonder
true.
10 or 20 years from now if you're going to be proud of that, you know, on a personal level. Like, will you be proud that he tried to tear down news outlets?
He's not trying to tear down news outlets. He's trying to get some fair and full coverage. And I've been very clear from day one, Brian, that my main objection will always be full coverage, complete coverage, that we're just missing an opportunity
to make sure. That's why we cover the unemployment rate and the economy and all of those very important topics.
Okay, but CNN's own Van Jones was in the East Room on Friday when the president and Jared Kushner and others held forth and had a prison reform, moving the ball forward on that issue. Obviously, I'm the point person for the president and the administration on opioids. That's going better now, but I've got a lot of bipartisan support from Capitol Hill. You just don't want to cover it. These are things that affect Americans. We lost more people to drug overdoses than gun violence, plane crashes, breast cancer. And this is a serious, all of those are serious matters, but this is too. And my beef will always be incomplete coverage. I don't think anybody should feel proud about obsessive coverage on one or two things to the exclusion of all these issues that Americans tell us in the White House every single day they want to hear more about.
You know, there were these stories recently about Sean Hannity as a shadow chief of staff or shadow comms director. I was wondering if you and Hannity ever coordinate. Can you tell us about that?
I don't coordinate with Sean Hannity. We're both pretty busy people. I go on a show once a week or every couple weeks. I saw Sarah Sanders was on the other night. I've known Sean for a very long time, but there's nothing to coordinate. Why would we need to coordinate? What is there to coordinate? I have a relationship with the president. I speak with him regularly. Sean is running the highest rated show on cable, and I think there's a reason for that. He's providing information that people can't find anywhere else. Sean would have low ratings if he was talking about everything else everybody's talking about. Think about that for a moment. People are starved for unique content, and they seem to not be getting it elsewhere. I think his ratings show that, and what he covers every night show that. But he's also dealing with things that are outside of my purview. For example, congressional investigations. I don't have access to those materials. I'm glad the country's starting to have access to those materials, Brian, because I think when everybody's calling for transparency and accountability, it ought to cut every single way. And we ought to know the way the other investigation of the person who lost the election and you weren't expecting to, how that investigation was handled. We're learning more about that now, and it is relevant. Even though she lost, it is relevant because it talks about the upper echelons of the FBI and what was going on. And we ought to know, if you're going to give Jim Comey all this book time,
we should know who committed crimes. Yes, we should know who committed crimes. That includes in any campaign. Let me ask you one more transparency question. I'm going to be talking later this hour about Amazon and this Washington Post report. The headline is that President Trump personally pushed the Postmaster General to double rates on Amazon. This looks like he's trying to punish the Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos by punishing Amazon. Do you know if that is the case, that Trump has been pressuring the Postmaster General?
I know it's not the case that he's trying to punish Jeff Bezos or has him in his mind when he's talking about this. The president has made very clear, whether it's trade with China, whether it's renegotiating with Mexico, whether it's the EU, the NATO dues, and Amazon. He wants a more fair playing field for everyone and an equal playing field for everyone. And the mom and pops don't have the sweetheart deal. Apparently, the president has told me that Amazon has a 5-year sweetheart deal. It's sealed. People can't get access to it. Speaking of a lack of transparency, and the post office is losing money on every package that it sends out on behalf of Amazon. The president's point, too, is without the post office, Amazon would probably need to go and create its own infrastructure. So it does great in the big cities, right? I mean, my daughter orders things almost all the time, I'm sure, from Amazon. But if you're talking about some of our rural communities, the post office was there first, and they have the infrastructure and the access. And so the post office and Amazon have been working together, but the president's entire point is we're still losing billions and billions of dollars each year, and he just wants a playing field that is more fair to the mom and pops. It's exactly what he's saying about China, about Mexico, about dues to NATO, what he talks about at the EU, what he talks about with respect to illegal immigration, that for years this country's been asking what's fair to the illegal immigrant, what more can we give or do for him or her. He's now saying, hey, what's fair to the American worker in these factories that are closing? So everything that he has talked about goes back to this issue of fairness, and this is no different.
Kellyanne Conway, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure. Take care.